We begin with our big story tonight, the shocking story out of Florida where 12-year-old Rebecca Sedwick was driven to suicide after relentless bullying, and a 12- and 14-year-old girl are under arrest, charged with felony aggravated stalking. After Rebecca Sedwick jumped to her death last month, police say one of the accused girls wrote on Facebook, "Yes, I bullied Rebecca and she killed herself, but IDGAF, short for I don't give a expletive." That taunting Facebook message led Polk County Sheriff Grady Judge to arrest the two girls. He joins me now along with CNN legal analyst and criminal defence attorney Mark O'Meara. Welcome to both of you. Sheriff, let me start with you. This is a pretty awful case, also a groundbreaking case. Why? Let's start first of all with the decision to deal with the two girls, and then the wider issue of parental responsibility. Give me your view in terms of both of those parts of this story.
Well, Piers, this went further than bullying. This was stalking, and it occurred over about a 10-month period. Interventions were tried by the school and by the victim's mom to no avail. At that point, law enforcement had to step in, and that's why we made felony criminal charges, because if this can't be taken care of at home, certainly the system has an answer.
Now, obviously, we know that lots of kids around this age, particularly with the advent of social media, with Facebook and Twitter and so on, they do tend to be pretty unpleasant to each other. Where does it move from that to the severity of what has happened here? In other words, where there is a genuine risk that somebody may take their life?
Well, they were saying stuff like, go kill yourself, go drink bleach and die. And this was just what was online. The 14-year-old victim actually, over this period of 10 months, caused the 12-year-old suspect to fight our victim, Rebecca. So it was physical taunting. They terrorized her, they intimidated her, and it was a long-standing feud, if you will, that wouldn't stop. So as a result, we had to do something, because obviously our suspect, who was 14, and our victim, who was 12, were constantly at each other. But most importantly, our victim was beat down. She just wanted this to stop. And on the very last day of her life, she texted a friend of hers and said, "I can't take it anymore. I'm jumping. I'm going to kill myself." He didn't tell anyone, and that's exactly what she did.
She did. She climbed a tower at an abandoned concrete plant and leapt to her death. She'd already cut her wrists in a previous failed suicide attempt. An absolutely appalling story. Let me turn to you, Mark O'Meara, if I may, about the issue of parental responsibility and the law. Where does it lie at the moment, and where do you think it should be?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot of responsibility put on parents' shoulders for the way their kids act online. We know that if a child gets a hold of a parent's gun, the parents are responsible. A car, they could be responsible. Parents are responsible for getting these kids to school on time. The internet is brand new. Wonderful tool, could be used for a lot of good, but also because it is so open, it could be used for some bad. And the kids are not old enough to understand. They've grown up in a video age where you just push a reset button and you start over again. Parents have to be more diligent and vigilant in looking at what their kids do, because we have to look to the responsible people, the parents, to make sure that they teach the lessons that obviously were not taught to these two girls.
We have a policy at CNN not to identify used, but in this case, their identities have already been made public by law enforcement authorities, and they've received extensive attention in their hometown media. I want to play a clip here from the parents of the 14-year-old girl. They go by the names of Jose and Vivian. Let's watch this.
My daughter's not that type of girl to do something like that.
I grabbed the computer and I took it to my room. Because that's what we've been doing. We took the computer to her room, and the only other thing that she could have used to send this message was my cell phone. And my cell phone is always with me.
I always check her Facebook. I know her password, you know. She never once, you know, bullied this girl online. Mr.
Sheriff Judd, I mean, it seems highly implausible, to put it mildly, that the parents are telling the truth here. I mean, it would seem pretty clear from the evidence we've all seen that their girl did indeed online bully this poor girl, Rebecca. But let me put this to you, which is a wider issue. I've got 4 children, 3 sons of 20, 16 and 13. Whilst I can see what they put on, say, Twitter, or I can see Facebook posts perhaps, I can't control what they're sending in private messages because I would have no knowledge of that without access to their computers or their cell phones. How do you regulate as a parent going forward, do you think, in light of this awful story? How do you regulate what you can't get access to?
Well, Piers, you can get access to it. If that's your child in your home, then you need to take control of that child. I hear people say, oh, my child needs privacy. No, your child doesn't need privacy when they're a juvenile. They absolutely don't. And that was the problem. And then Vivian says, oh, they would never do that. I monitor their Facebook. Well, we arrested Vivian this afternoon for a different case where she was beating on children who she had in her custody who we can't identify by law. So while she's telling the national media that that would never happen, we have a video clip that was posted by one of her daughters about a beating that occurred, and obviously she didn't monitor that very well because that resulted in her arrest this afternoon.
I want to play another clip to you, Mark, and then ask you how you think the law should change. This is where Jose and Vivian talk about their responsibility as parents.
I don't think it's fair for me and my husband to be, you know, punished for something that they're saying that my daughter did, and my daughter's being punished for something that she didn't do.
Now, Mark, obviously, the justice will take its course here in relation to the girl and what she actually did. The evidence seems pretty clear that she was bullying this girl, Rebecca. We will see if that all, in the end, is what happens in court and there's a conviction. But in terms of the parents' attitude there, I mean, it is difficult. You know, I don't want to be massively fair to them because, you know, I feel much more, I guess, empathetic to the family of this poor girl that killed herself. At the same time, having had 3 teenage kids, how far can you really say parents have to be legally responsible for every word they may post on social media?
And I don't think they can be for every word, but if a parent acts in a way that, in my opinion, is grossly negligent, if law enforcement, and I want to congratulate Sheriff Judd for everything he did in this case and the dedication, because it really needed to be brought to light. But if a parent doesn't act in a way which is responsible, if they act in a way which is grossly negligent, they ignore a child's internet presence, to me, that's just like ignoring if a child's carrying around a gun or have the keys to the car. We have to put the responsibility where it lies on the parent. So my suggestion in the law that I'm coming up with says, if it can be proven in a court of law that a parent acted in a grossly negligent way, not being properly supervising over the child, and the child commits an act of danger or harm to another, then the parent should be responsible. I will admit it's going to be a difficult law to draft and to enforce, but sheriffs like Sheriff Judd have to have this type of tool to go to a parent and say, you're going to be responsible. That's the punitive side. The positive side is we're also coming up with some very positive ways to allow parents, to educate parents, how to properly supervise their children online. It's not impossible. It just takes some effort by the parents.
I mean, Sheriff, I guess the obvious reaction I would have to that is it all sounds great, and I'm totally in favour of what Mark's trying to achieve. At the same time, I mean, if I knew one of my kids had access to a car, especially if they're under the age to drive one, if they had access to a firearm, whatever it may be, then I can see that you just go and take away that object from them, and it's quite clear-cut. But what do you do about laptops and cell phones? I mean, do you expect parents who have concerns to confiscate those? How far do you take it?
Piers, I absolutely do, and I think Mark's on the right path here. We're not talking about a singular event. We understand, all of us who have raised teenagers understand that they do silly things that they shouldn't from time to time. But in this event, this went on for a period of 10 months. So at what point do parents have criminal culpability? They already had moral responsibility, but in the home, the parent is the first defense for protecting their children from being bullied or doing the bullying. And parents have that obligation. There is no Fourth Amendment right preventing a parent from searching their electronic device, and parents should. And after all, if the children don't want to go along with that program, take the device away from them. It's more important to be a good parent. They shouldn't be their good friend, but they need to be a great parent.
And let's just end, I think, by reminding everybody that in the end, the girl accused to be the main tormentor here posted this comment, which said, yes, I bullied Rebecca and she killed herself, but IDGAF, which means I don't give a expletive. And I think that says it all, really, because if that was one of my kids, I would frog march them straight to the nearest police station and let justice take its course. And the fact that the families don't see that responsibility or that need to take that responsibility is ultimately, to me, negligence. Mark O'Meara and Sheriff Judd, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you, Piers.